On a recent trip to Coronado, California, I was on a walk in a quiet neighborhood when I abruptly stopped after spotting a gorgeous garden. I couldn't help but knock on the front door. Maryly Benzian warmly greeted me and invited me inside. She told me she had just lost her beloved husband Peter of 50 years to pancreatic cancer. She told me how they met in 1972 and went on to marry and have 4 children together. I learned that Peter was a man of many talents, an Army veteran, a distinguished lawyer, always fighting for the underdog, a loving husband, father, and grandfather. So a big thank you to Maryly for graciously inviting me and Homeworthy for a tour of her gardens and home, which you would never believe was in foreclosure when they purchased it. Enjoy this special episode. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. Welcome to my home in Coronado. Come on in. Hi, I'm Maryly Benzian, and we're here at my house in Coronado, California. And it's a little cottage that grew and grew, so we had more children, and we've been so happy here, and it's just a great place to live. I love my house. It was built in 1898, and the architect was Irving Gill, who's quite famous. He worked with Requa, and it was kind of the age of Frank Lloyd Wright, but before that. And we've kept all his design with these doors and the hardware, and the siding of the house is exactly the same, and the mantle, and it has the harp stairway, which is one of his things that he has in a lot of houses. And it's so old, but we've pushed out the kitchen and we added the granny flat and bathroom as our family was growing from 2 children to 4. And it's just the most wonderful town. It's an island, and people are just very friendly. There's no crime. We have the beach, which is great, and my husband could just drive over the bridge 5 minutes to downtown to work. We have great public schools. My kids all went to public school, one to boarding school. And it's just wonderful. This is a great geranium. I give everyone a piece because you don't even have to root it. It just grows. It's amazing. Even my niece in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where it's just freezing and ice, I give her a couple pieces, and it's just now climbing all over her front of her house. These are freesia, and they're native to Coronado. So those also a really great thing to grow here. This vine is called blue Thornbergia, and it is really a great plant, and it's climbed all the way up over the arbor, the top, and it blooms like crazy. You might be hearing a few planes and helicopters, and that is the sound of freedom. So we have North Island Naval Base just down the way here, and when those sounds are on, that means the ship is coming in. When we moved to here, it was all dirt. They were in the middle of remodel, and I had to cry about it. But then I started designing my garden, and I have pictures, old ones when things were little and kind of changed. And now it just takes care of itself. It's great because the plants are all mature. Years ago, I had a nursery here in Coronado, and that's where I really started designing my English garden and collecting all my different species of roses, and I always put in some vegetables and fruits too with it. My parents always had a big veggie garden and fruit trees and flowers. They were gardeners and as a hobby. And so I think that, but just by studying with my partner, and then we used our houses and we got a job across the street, and those were our laboratory. These are Color Magic. And this is Apricot Dream, and they're just great bloomers. They'll be blooming now until we cut them in December. So it's a great rose to have. Here's a little volunteer, nasturtium, and those are edible, so you can put them on your salad. The white are iceberg. It's another great rose. It just blooms and makes a great hedge because it's blooming all the time. Doesn't get diseased. Really great rose. This is my apple tree. There's some baby apples on there. They were not good for years. They were just terrible. And then the car wash guy gave me a 1 gallon sunflower tree, which is just not out yet. But it came from a little 1 gallon and it grew as big as this. So the two of them must have cross-pollinated because now the apples are great. This is Meyer lemon, and they're just delicious. The first year it had 3 lemons. I was so happy after this baby. So I came out to get one, and there were 2. And I asked my husband, did you pick one of those lemons? He said, no, some guy came by and said, is it okay if I have one of your lemons? And I said, sure. I said, no, I waited for years for this. You cook with them and have them in your cocktail and make lemonade. This rose is Eden, and it's a climber, and it's my favorite rose. It reminds me of the David Austin English roses, and I have it all over my whole garden. People also cut them. Somebody brought me a photograph, rang the doorbell and brought me a photograph from the front. It was a really nice photograph. And there was a lady right over by the gate, and my daughter answered the door, and they said, so is the lady who built this garden, is she alive? And my daughter said, yeah, that's my mom, she is. And she said, and is that her right over there? And she said, actually no, that would be someone who came with their clippers to steal our roses and stole every one of them, the candy canes. People do often. And the thing is, if they would only ask me, I of course would give them. These are the candy cane. And it's a climber also. This is a Tiaha poppy. And the English just would love to have this plant, but it's too cold there. They're always trying, but it's great here, and it has these, its common name is fried egg, and it gets this big white poppy with a big yellow center. These are my favorite rose, the Eden climbing rose. They're Chinese rose, and they remind me of the David Austin. And these will climb up over top there. This is Fame is the name of this rose, and it's just a really good rose. Really doesn't get diseased and gives a nice color. And then this is Digitalis, or foxglove. And then this is a volunteer, which means it just must be a native, but it just turns up in the garden. Every day I'm out here, and I also have the rose doctor who comes and feeds them and sprays if necessary, and he'll cut them back too. Just every day it's different. It's in Japan, gardening is one of the arts. And for me, it's like a palette, and I look at it and I can see, oh, maybe I need to move this foxglove over here. There's kind of a hole, or I just love to do it. It's like painting. This is a dahlia, and they're big. They're tubers. This has been blooming for months, and it probably go right through the summer. Just love that plant. And here, these are delphinium. People come to have their photos, and so cute. They'll come with, you know, their child's communion or something, and the whole family, or they all get, they say, is it okay? Yes, come on. And I always tell people the garden's for everyone, and I do give people a rose if they want one. But the way I find out that somebody's getting them, I'll go over to the convenience store down on the corner. Every day they were having this huge bouquet of roses, and I knew those were my roses. So I asked him, so where did you get those roses? And he said, well, there's a really nice lady who just comes and she has a big basket full and just brings them to us every few days. And this is a freeway plant, but I love it. If you want to start a garden, or an English garden, but any garden, you want to put the lower plants and get some height, because it's just a little boring when they're all the same height. And there are always volunteers, which is so fun because things seed in, and especially this year we had a lot of rain. So these nasturtiums came, and the delphiniums, I hadn't seen those in years. This is lobelia, which is a fantastic little edging plant, or in a basket to hang over the sides. These are freesia, and they're bulbs, and they're just finishing. Smell really good, and they were beautiful, but they have to be cut back soon. It's really a good plant because it will always come back and grow and multiply. And this is Mexican evening primrose, and it just is like a weed. I take it all out in the winter, cut it out, and then it just comes back, it seeds itself. Calla lilies are great. They're so easy. They grow in the sun and the shade here because of our climate, and they multiply also. I mean, there was just one, and it's multiplied over the years. And here's my favorite rose, Eden, up there, that's just starting to come, and it's up on top here too. Here's a calla that jumped over. These are daylilies, and they're really easy to grow, and they just don't get sick, and they're very reliable. This is a really unusual one because it has that colored eye that I got from a guy out in El Cajon who has them in his backyard, hundreds of them. Here are the artichokes over here. Here's one, a couple coming. These are clivia, and they were full on both sides, and a friend moved in down the street and they were there. She didn't like them, so I went over and dug them up and put them in. I love my calla lilies, and I think that it's because I loved Betty Davis, and there's a famous line she said, "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille."
It shouldn't come as a surprise, but Maryly has won more than 70 awards for this garden.
I have some, I'd say, eclectic, really, collection of curiosities, and I just love unusual, pretty things. And I've gone through different stages, from the all white to now sanded the floors, and they're the same old red oak floors from 1898, and they still are great. And has 2 fireplaces, which he designed because no electricity and no heat. And we just light the fires, and the whole downstairs is warmed, and the upstairs just stays cool, which is nice for sleeping. At my nursery, we carried a line of English pottery, and there were dogs, and there were bunnies, and there were for the garden. This is the original old door and hardware from 1898, and it's just, you can see the little bevel in the glass, the old glass, and it's just a good old door. This is the harp stairway, banister, which is one of the signature pieces of Irving Gill. And this mirror is from an good antique shop in La Jolla. And this is from a house sale in LA, my painting. This is Peter and me back in 1980 and 1972. We went up to Big Sur, to Dejan's Big Sur Inn. We saw that fork. We thought about the painting of American Gothic, so we did our own American Gothic. This painting is by my great uncle James Barry, and he was a Renaissance man. He was an attorney. He was a playwright. He wrote several books. And he's an artist. And he went to Paris and lived and painted. And his paintings, I just love his paintings. So when he died, his only daughter burned every single one of his paintings, burned them up. And she saved this one and gave it to me because she knew I loved it. And I don't know why a little problem there, father-daughter. But he carved the frame too. I had never been to Coronado, and my husband and I came down 2 times to meet the real estate lady, and she took us to these nouveau big, huge things that and he said, just don't say anything. And I said, well, I have to tell her this is just not my cup of tea, and I'm interested in the architecture and sidewalks for my kids to ride their bikes and good schools. So we did find a wonderful house in La Jolla, beautiful. Gardens off every room, but it had a 90-foot drop from the balcony on the highest level, and that I had a 2-year-old and 4-year-old, so I couldn't have that. And so he was living here and working, and I was still in LA with the kids, and just we hated it, just not being together. And so he heard from somebody in the law firm that their nieces was getting a divorce, and that there was this house in Coronado. It had been in foreclosure. It was halfway, and they were remodeling, and suggested that we go look at it. Said it was a great place, a lot. And so we drove down, and the guy wouldn't let us go in. So we just, looked at it, but we couldn't really see. There was dirt out front, and I don't know, it just didn't have the curb appeal. And also the house looks like a cottage, but we have a really large lot. It's pie-shaped, so there's a lot of square feet, which is nice. So we just kind of didn't talk about that again. And then one day, Peter called me and told me about his day, and I told him about mine. And he said, oh, and by the way, I bought a house in Coronado. And I said, you bought a what? And he said, a house. I bought a house. And I was stunned. So he said, well, I bought it on the courthouse steps in an auction, got a great deal on it, and if you don't like it, we could have it as a beach house, we could sell it or rent it. So I was just in shock, and I didn't really want to move anyways. I'd been resistant. And so we drove down here to see it, and it was just dirt, and all the trees and shrubs had been taken out, and it had this great flagpole, which I'm getting back up from the 1800s, and big American flag, but they didn't have that. And so we went in the house, and I called it an homage to bad wood because they'd taken this beautiful old Irving Gill designed wood and mantles and stairway, and they sanded it and put kind of a reddish stain on there. It just wasn't good. And the rugs it was carpeted, and it was dirty, and it was just, I had to cry all the way home. I couldn't decorate it, or I didn't know what to do with it. So I just had the painter paint it all white, the floors, the stairs, the banister, everything, all white. And it was really fabulous. But the only part of our house that has never, ever deteriorated in any way is the part that was built in 1898. And it's redwood and lath. And that redwood you can't get anymore. And it's pretty amazing. We've had to open the wall for electrical or whatever, and it's in perfect condition. And of course, wherever the new parts are, they get termites and there's deterioration, and the ocean affects it. And so it's pretty magic, that old. Peter and I were married for 50 years, and we lived in LA for 10 years. And then we moved down. He opened the litigation office for the Latham & Watkins, his law firm in San Diego, and we ended up buying this house and really unsure about it, and it turned out to be just the greatest thing. We raised our 4 children here, and they went to the wonderful schools, and they rode their bikes to school and everywhere, and it's just a great community. We love the community, and we still know all generations. And so my kids have gone to college and worked in other cities, but they're all back here except for one who's in Australia, and he's married with 2 little girls and one on the way. And he always says, I got to get back there. I love my garden, and it really was just nothing when we got here, and I think that it just became a love of mine and even my career. And so every day I come out when I wake up and pull off the dead and kind of look and see how everything's doing, and just love my garden. These are mushrooms. They're from one of my best friends from Berkeley owns an antique shop in London. A lot of things in my house are from her shop. And these are old prints of different kinds of mushrooms. And these are poisonous, and these are not. I have my tiny teacups. They're mostly from England, from we always went to antique markets, so much fun with the dealers. So collected those, and then my boxes from all over the place. And these boxes, I think my mom started giving them to me. Then my mom and dad were going to Russia, and I gave her $1,000 and said, just get me the best box. And so she got this one. No, it's this one. And a babysitter that I had gave it to the baby to chew on. So it's worth nothing. My rocks, when I was a little girl, I always said, Daddy, please, can we stop and go on these road trips in the station wagon? And they'd have rock shops along the road in Utah, and he would stop. So I have collected rocks my whole life. I had them all. I had a big display of them on this table, and candles. And I'd have my friends over and have a party, and my husband would say, are we having a seance tonight? These are from Australia. My son is married to an Australian woman. These are koala bears that she gave me, and these are Hogwarts. And then my shells, a lot of my shells I collected in LA because there was a shop around the block from my apartment called She Sells Seashells. She had great ones. And so that's when I started collecting my seashells. This is San Marcos Square. It's really famous. If you have buy a little seed or something, they flock to you. So that was fun. My friend Amanda made these made from paper, and she wrapped the papers in their paper balls. When you open them, they're little prizes coming out. And I have all these fruits of them too, and I always let my grandchildren have them at the table for Christmas or Thanksgiving or special occasion. And it makes a big pile of paper, and they find a little whistle and a little things in there. So those are fun. Welcome to my dining room. This is probably my favorite room. All original from the 1898. And these moldings, all these moldings, the windows, even the glass in the windows, the hardware. And then this plate rack I love around here. I used to have all plates, but now I like my silk Chinese wallpaper, which is hand painted on silk. And it's just, I just love it. It's different. And when we decided to put it in, I decided to paint the moldings green, and it was already in, and I was afraid they were going to get paint on it. But my painter, Victor's so good, and I was unsure of my decision too, but I do love it, having the moldings green. And this is the Countess Fortuny, who lived in Venice. She's now gone, but her son still has the company, and they do light fixtures and fabrics and ball gowns. My plates I've collected, by going to the charity shops in different cities in LA, and from my great aunties. And Peter, I think Peter gave me this for Christmas, this one. And so I have this one, really nice one. You can't really see it. It's a good one too. I grew up in Sacramento, California. I was born in the Bay Area. I went to University of California at Berkeley. I was hippie, 1966 to 70. And then I moved to LA, got this great job, my dream job, about this school started by Anna Freud, that I was thrilled to get that job. And my brother lived in LA, and I stayed with them for 10 days, and then I got my apartment, and it said in the newspaper, Beverly Hills adjacent, which I thought was hilarious. And still there, and my rent was $105 a month. And it was near the school, and it was near my brother. So my brother was in the same law firm as my husband. So I met him over at their house. They had a house that was the hangout. And my sister-in-law and I were wallpapering the bathroom, black and white nudes, and we decided we had to do the ceiling also. So we had it dripping all over our heads. We were laughing our heads off. And Peter, my husband, and my best friend Claire were out bike riding and stopped by. She was engaged to another guy in the law firm, friend. My daughter is named Claire, so they're very good friends. And I thought they were a couple, but I did have the lightning bolt of love for him. And I said to my sister-in-law, well, how let's go out with him or go to Nucleus Nuance, the hippie restaurant. And she said, oh no, he's just been married for 2 months and it didn't work out, and he's just a mess. And I said, well, I think I could help him out with that. But I was dating someone else. There were all these guys from every great law school in the country coming for the firm who knew no one. So every night people would call me, oh, you want to go play tennis? You want to go to dinner? So it was a lot of really fun time. Then I ran into Peter again in Malibu at my friend Daisy's beach party. And that's where we were both with someone else there, but we ended up sitting and talking, and that was kind of the beginning of our relationship. Now we're in my kitchen, which we redid probably about 10 years ago, and it had been pushed out already, but all these doors open, so it's really nice for in and out. And you know how the kitchen's always where everybody hangs out, so the architect who helped us with this kitchen did a really great job, and this is a great family dinner and place that we spent a ton of time. So I used to like to. I cooked, 40,000 meals for my 4 children, so now they'll all do the cooking, and I'm really happy about that. These are all George Washington plates, and they're old, and I collected them, one by one. And my friend, who's an antique dealer, found some of them in New York for me and some in Pennsylvania. And So that's my little collection. I have my eggs from her too. These are from England. These my daughter Claire brought from India when she was there on business. Peter bought the house, and it was just the greatest thing he did. I think there's something magical about it. And the kids, he's just such a wonderful dad, and was a great person, and we had so much fun hanging out together for 50 years. And when he was really sick with pancreatic cancer, just this last few months, we talked, and he said, "I'm really sorry. I have to leave you after 50 years of all this." And I said, "Yeah, me too." But he had 2 different careers. He was a partner at Latham & Watkins, litigator, and then he joined Burford Capital, which is the investment law of it's like banking, yeah. But they took lawsuits of the underdog who was being sued they were suing the giant company, and they'd look at the different cases and see if they should fund it, if it was a good one for them, and then they'd take their cut. So we changed the man cave back there. Used to be Barry's little room, and we changed it into an office for him, so that worked out really well too. Peter really was a very special person. His friends from Dartmouth, his friends from childhood, his family friends, his friends at the firm, the 2 different firms, he's a really loved person. He was very smart, brilliant, and he was a hard worker, and he was always helping someone else with their work. And that really came out when we had his retirement party in New York City the first week in November, and they honored him, and we went to the River Cafe, and we stayed at the Harvard Club, and it was just really sweet, all the things for me to hear about, all the people that worked at the firm who just loved him and, really had a relationship with him. We have the children's kitchen, which is well used, and then we have this great table, and some of the chairs are around the yard, but we can fit 14 people, so it's really fun to eat out here. So in the summer especially, we eat out here, and for Thanksgiving. And the pool was black bottom when we bought the house. It was really pretty, but it had a jacuzzi that was raised up and fountains on the other side, and so we couldn't have the pool cover, and we needed that because it's the only way really to have the kids safe. And we have lots of people over, and they do, and that's just when some child will, even though you're right there. So unless one of the parents is watching, or Peter, he would be the lifeguard, and he loved it because he didn't have to talk to anybody, and he could just watch the kids. This plant is what my granddaughter calls dinosaur food, and she picks it and gets her dinosaurs. But and I wanted for you, it grew right through the dining room window, and it not through the window, but actually through the wood of the house. There are these 4 sprigs of it in there, and my housekeeper pulled them right out, but I had wanted it to show you what it does. And my gardener said we have to cut it back because it's going to take over the whole yard. Let's walk towards my gazebo. When my kids were little, all 4 of them would be saying, "Mom, Mom," and driving me crazy. So I would just go out there, and I could see them in the house just running around, and just take a little break out there. It was a shed. It was here from 1898, and then we just made it into this gazebo, and it's a little private reading place or have a cocktail. And then the bamboo over here is 30 years old, and it's called Old Hami Grand Cane bamboo, and it's a clumping bamboo, so it stays within a 10-foot diameter, because many bamboos will come in up under your pool, or they have runners, but these do not. And then the other plant that's with it It's a ficus tree, and I had from our house in LA 5 potted ficus trees, and I brought them down and I planted them right along here. They got so huge that one by one I had to take them out. This is one house plant of a ficus tree, this huge thing. These, when we redid the back, and it used to be grass and a play structure and for the kids, and then when we redid it and got the pool cover, and this had to be changed because of the electrical. All of these palms, we had had a fence before, and all these pots were down at the end there where the palm trees are, and the seeds would just fall down into the pots, and they all grew to be like this one. There's one left in the pot. And that's what these are that we planted in here just a few years ago. So they're babies of these giant ones. See that huge seed pod up there? I'm gonna have that cut off, but some of them, you know, fall down, so there's always babies around. Couldn't get anything to grow in the little space right between the bed, the bamboo, and the ferns in here, and I wanted to have color there, but it wasn't happening, so I tried one thing after another, and then pretty soon, just from the seeds being blown over there, now it has all the little palms coming. I always like it to be really comfortable, so it looks like you can just sit down anywhere. It doesn't matter if you drop your drink or your child throws up, or so you know, I like really pretty things, but I also we use every inch of our house. Never looks like somebody hasn't been in there.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.